Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome back to the second hour of News and Views on Salam Media. It is just gone 18 after 9 o'clock, and we're now going to be talking with Gideon Chitanga. He's a research associate at African Center for the Study of the United States at Wits University. Always a pleasure to talk with you, Professor Gideon Chitanga, and we are going to be looking at the horrific story, the horrific event that happened 5 years ago. And of course, that was the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. He is a Saudi national who lived in Virginia, USA, and he wrote for the Washington Post. He walked into the Saudi consulate in Istanbul to obtain documents for his upcoming marriage to a Turkish woman, but he never came out at all. We understand that he was dismembered and his remains have till today never been found. And also, it seems as if justice was not done because till today, we're not quite sure what had actually happened, who called the hit on Jamal Khashoggi, and where to from here. Where is the justice for his loved ones? Good morning, Gideon. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, and good morning to the listeners.
Okay, we do understand that US intelligence later determined that a team of 15 Saudi agents had flown to Istanbul to carry out this capture or kill operation, which was supposedly approved by Prince Mohammed bin Salman. But because Jamal Khashoggi was a US citizen, I'm kind of wondering why the US are not putting more pressure for answers regarding this killing.
I think that there has been mixed messages from the US in terms of its enforcement of human rights as part of the core values of its system governance and international diplomacy. The expectation that the US would take a cohesive posture aligned to the use of sanctions and rallying other Western powers to take such a position has not been realized in this case for a number of reasons, but particularly that Saudi Arabia remains a key ally of the US, and where US key interests are prominent, it is traditional that human rights issues will always be secondary. And I think this issue, the Khashoggi issue, indicates that. The second thing is the geopolitical pressures are putting the US leverage, I think, at a diminished level, particularly with key powers like Saudi Arabia, which is a key producer of oil, a key ally of the US. Saudi Arabia is also shifting a bit its policies between forging strong alliances, diplomatic relations with China. At the same time, we notice that it is trying to normalize relations with Israel, which is quite an important factor in U.S. policies in the Middle East, and broadly, it's trying to align its interests with broader U.S. policies in the Middle East. So to that extent, it would look like these issues broadly of human rights then takes a secondary sort of level in terms of the major key issues of interest. But also it is important to note that there are changes that are happening in Saudi Arabia. The system is shifting in a very gradualistic way, although the changes are top-down, basically being from and by the government instead of the citizens. So you will talk of women being allowed to drive, women being allowed to go to public spaces. The idea that women are not strictly compelled to wear the hijab is what was traditionally the practice. But I would say that the fundamental issue is that the U.S. is trying to keep Saudi Arabia on its corner and to minimize public consternation with the government of Saudi Arabia and trying to deal with the issue quietly. And such a play of bilateral relations is more informed by the international context, where I think the US is trying to make sure that it does not lose main allies, or it does not at least anger the key allies in the Middle East.
So it's really all about geopolitical gains. It's about bottom line. It's about profits. It's about bilateral trade, etc., etc., etc. I'm kind of also wondering, Professor Gideon, if this had been a white American person that was butchered the way Jamal Khashoggi had been butchered, there's no signs of his remains either. Would the US have taken a slightly different stance? Because the way I read the situation, Jamal Khashoggi is a Saudi, he was born in Saudi Arabia, so he probably has dual citizenship. But he has since lived and worked in the United States for a long time. Would the situation have been different if this was a white man?
Certainly, I would agree with you. A white man or a white woman, definitely informed by the fact that I think there would be level of political cost from the American citizens. I do not think that and the whole scenario around him is a major issue for American voters. I'm not talking here of someone who is a born American, a citizen, natural citizen, someone who probably would have lived his life in the US for the whole period of his birth. There is a difference here in the sense that Khashoggi will always be seen or be viewed as a Saudi citizen. So let's call him a distant relative who is probably viewed in a political context that the ordinary citizens we would probably not on a day-to-day grapple with. I would say that surely for US policymakers, this is such a conundrum because President Biden went to Saudi twice. He has met the Saudi leader twice. And in both circumstances, the controversy that emerged from the interactions suggests that this is quite a controversial issue for the US. But certainly, the key American interest and obviously key interest for the Saudis are at play here. There is obviously some conversations, but these conversations are not so important as to risk the major geopolitical interests that are at play. I would say that more than human rights issues, the US is mostly interested in advancing its core interest in the Middle East, its core interest with Saudi, its core interest in the context of the geopolitical play. The US is closely watching the evolving relations between Saudi Arabia and China. It's watching what Saudi Arabia is doing in terms of realigning relations with Israel, and also it's shifting relations with Iran, and how these major events are either risking or enhancing its interests. And I suppose that the issue of human rights broadly, but this particular issue of the matter of Khashoggi is a matter of interest, but which is not so important as to put all these relations in jeopardy.
And sadly, we can make this. We can make similar comparisons when we talk about the slain journalist in Palestine, Shireen Abu Akleh. She also and her family also haven't got justice for her murder by the Israeli occupiers. Once again, she too was a brown person, a Palestinian, a Christian Palestinian. They too have not got justice for her senseless and deliberate killing. Let's wrap up now, and let's just look at this last issue regarding human rights groups warning that the lack of consequences for Khashoggi's murder, and I should imagine also for Shireen Abu Akleh's murder in Palestine, doesn't just insult their memories, but also puts other people at risk, very especially people in the media, journalists, right across and all around the world. Your thoughts, Professor?
Yes, they are very interesting parallels with respect to the treatment of brown people, but historically also very broad, extensive parallels with just the treat of the non-white races when it comes to U.S. policies. There have been long-running suggestions that when it comes to American co-interest issues of race, U.S. policy will always take a very partisan side. And unfortunately, in spite of the historical advocates to advance human rights, protection of journalists in the world as well as in the U.S., these are significant cases that fault U.S. policies, fault U.S. Politicians in terms of their sincerity and commitment to the protection of human rights, and undermines global American policy when it comes to the protection of human rights of the other people.
Black and brown people, I sometimes wonder if there's any hope for us at all. But as always, Professor Gideon Chitanga, Research Associate at the African Center for the Study of the United States at Wits University. Wonderful talking with you always. You keep safe and go well.
Thank you.
The time is exactly 9:29. News and views on Salam Media. And next we are going to be talking about the concern regarding unfulfilled or unfilled positions in the Eastern Cape's Health Department. This is News and Views on Salam Media. It is exactly
breaking stereotypes, moving boundaries, joining hands.